video opens with a slow, sweeping drone shot over the dusty, sun-baked plains of modern-day Mali. The music is haunting, a single chorus string being plucked, evoking a sense of ancient mystery and loss. Narrator. Voice is deep, measured, and conversational, like a griot sharing a secret. Ever look at a map and see a blank space? A desert maybe, a stretch of land that seems empty. But what if I told you that one of the richest, most powerful, most dazzling empires the world has ever known is buried right there, beneath the sand? An empire of such staggering wealth, its king once crashed the price of gold across the entire Mediterranean, just by showing up. This is not a fairy tale, this is history, and its name was Mali. But how do you build a kingdom of gold in the middle of a desert? And what kind of arrogance, what fatal flaw, tears such a masterpiece apart until all that's left is a story? Grab a seat. This is the epic, the tragedy, the rise and catastrophic fall of the Mali Empire. And trust me, by the end, you'll be looking at that blank space on the map, and you'll feel the ghost of its glory. Music swells and then fades into a subtle, tense background score. Part 1, The Rise from Ashes Gold. Once upon a time, the kingdom of Mali didn't exist. The land was dominated by the Soso Empire, a brutal, tyrannical regime under a king named Sumanguru Kante, a man whispered to command dark magic, whose very name sparked fear. His rule was iron-fisted. Oppression was the law. The people of the Mandinka tribes, they lived in fear. They had a grievance that burned in their hearts, a quiet, seething outrage. And every day, the Mandinka people suffered under Sumanguru's boot. They watched their sons taken, their villages taxed into poverty, their culture suppressed. They were waiting for a spark, for a hero. Until one day, that spark was struck. A young prince named Sundiata Keita. But Sundiata was no typical hero. A childhood illness left him crippled, unable to walk. The Soso mocked him. His own people saw him as weak. But inside that broken body was a mind of sharp, unforgiving steel, and a spirit that refused to bow. He carried a fear, not for himself, but for the complete annihilation of his people. And because of that, he did the impossible. Through sheer force of will, he learned to walk, then to lead. He gathered the disgruntled Mandinka chiefs, each nursing their own anger against Sumanguru. Sundiata became the vessel for their collective grievance. He wasn't just building an army, he was forging a nation from a shared dream of freedom. And because of that, the two forces clashed in 1235 at the Battle of Karina. It wasn't just a battle of swords and spears, it was a clash of magic, of will, of destiny. Legend says Sundiata, with the blessing of his ancestors, fired a poison-tipped arrow that found its mark. The tyrannical Sumanguru fell. The Soso Empire crumbled into dust. And until finally one Sundiata Keita was crowned Mansa, the Emperor King, he established the Mandin Charter, one of the first declarations of human rights in history, abolishing slavery and declaring that all lives had value. He didn't just create a kingdom, he built a system. A golden age was born. But this was only the beginning. Transition. Music shifts to something grand, awe-inspiring, with gold coins clinking subtly in the mix. Part 2, The Plateau, the Gilded Age. Once upon a time, the empire was stable, prosperous, and vast. But it needed a legend to sear its name into the world's memory. That legend arrived in the form of Mansa Musa, Sundiata's grandnephew. And every day, gold flowed from Mali's mines like water. The empire controlled nearly half the world's gold supply. Timbuktu became not just a city of trade, but a beacon of learning. Its universities and libraries were packed with scholars debating law, medicine, and astronomy. The empire was rich, yes, but it was also smart. It was powerful. It was the envy of the planet. Until one day, in 1324, Mansa Musa decided to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. But this wouldn't be a quiet journey of faith. This was a statement, a flex that would echo through centuries. And because of that, He set out with a caravan of 60,000 people, soldiers, servants, and 12,000 slaves, each carrying a staff of solid gold. 80 camels, each lugging 300 pounds of pure gold dust. He was literally bringing a mountain of wealth with him. And because of that, when he reached Cairo, he spent and gave away so much gold. He caused mass inflation. He flooded the market. The price of gold in Egypt crashed and didn't recover for over a decade. Can you imagine the outrage of the local merchants? The sheer, stupefying spectacle of it? The world looked at Mali and its jaw dropped. Mansa Musa had put his empire on the map, literally. European mapmakers would draw him sitting on a golden throne, holding a nugget the size of his fist at the very center of their known world. And until finally, Mali reached its zenith, it was the superpower of its age. It seemed invincible, eternal. But that's the most dangerous thought an empire can ever have, because the higher you climb, the more shadows you cast beneath you. And in those shadows, enemies are always watching, waiting. Transition. The grand music distorts, a single note sustained and becomes a dissonant, whirring drone. The visual of a single gold coin tarnishing. Part 3. The fall, the cracks in the throne. Once upon a time, the empire was mighty. But empires are like pyramids. If you weaken the base, the golden capstone will eventually fall. And every day, the seeds of destruction were sown. The empire was too vast to govern. Remote provinces began to chafe under the distant rule from the capital. The later Mansas, the heirs to Mansa Musa's glory, were not his equals. They were weaker, greedier, more concerned with the gold in their treasury than the loyalty of their people. A slow, rotting complacency set in.